Today I want to talk about my favorite dystopian novels because for some reason, I don't know why, I love dystopian books. I love dystopian stories, movies, anything I can get my hands on. So today I'm going to talk about 5 of my favorites. I'm not going to number them because I love them all for different reasons, so I can't say I love one more than the other because they're all fantastic. Also, I'm really sick, so bear with me during this video. Don't judge me. The first 3 I'm going to talk about are at my parents' house, so I don't have a copy to show you, but I'm sure you all know what they look like because they're all classics. Obviously, I'm going to talk about 1984 because it's brilliant. It's classic. I definitely think it's something everyone should open their mind to. It really makes you think about the world you live in. It makes you think about how many things in your life affect the way you think, even when you don't even realize it. It could be companies, it could be people, it could be schools, it could be a lot of things. There's a really awesome quote in the book. He who controls the past controls the future, and he who controls the present controls the past. And I think that's definitely something to think about because this happens even now, and people just kind of blindly accept it. If you think about the American school system, until probably middle school, you learn that Columbus founded America. Columbus didn't found America. I think there were some people here before him. And people just kind of blindly accept that and continue teaching that, even though we all know Native Americans were here first. They kind of had life here. I think this book definitely causes people to open up their mind and realize how much people, inherently just kind of accept things without worrying about them. Fahrenheit 451. I love this book. I know a lot of people hate it. It's another book we're forced to read, and I think we read it in middle school. But it's so good! And it's never not going to be relevant, I don't think, unfortunately. It's a really quick read. It's only like 190 pages or something. You can get through it really fast. If you haven't read it, it's all about firemen who, in this world, firemen go and burn books, which as an avid reader makes me want to cry. But I think it's definitely something interesting to read because book banning is so, it seems like, it reminds me of the Library of Alexandria and World War II when Hitler burned books in Berlin. And that just seems something so far off that people do that. But really, we have banned books in our school systems. We have banned books in our libraries. I think Fahrenheit 451 is a banned book in a lot of places, which is kind of ironic. And it definitely shows us why we shouldn't be doing that if you need to be told that. I think the part that really stood out to me in this book is when Bee starts screaming, "The people in these books never lived." And that really struck me because I read so much and I love immersing myself in different worlds, and I love just going off to a different place and seeing all these different characters and seeing how they interact with people and other characters. And to have someone so adamantly believe that those characters aren't real on some level upsets me. That's definitely the point of the book. Books are important. Books matter. You don't want to burn them. Next is Brave New World. It was written over 75 years ago, and it's one of the most progressive books by today's standards that I think I've read. Still. Written 75 years ago. How does that make sense? Well, it's one of the most banned books in America, which blows my mind because it's so important. One of the biggest modes of control used in this book is soma, which is this strange drug that just kind of makes you always happy and carefree. It's described in the book as all of the advantages of Christianity and alcohol, none of the defects. And that's kind of scary because it reminds me way too much of right now. I think a lot of people have already said we've arrived at Huxley's Brave New World, and that's kind of really, really terrifying because we've been described as the medication generation. And yes, some medication is definitely needed, but there's definitely a lot that's abused still, or even more so now. It's frighteningly easy to draw parallels between now and Brave New World. Next is V for Vendetta. So good, everyone should read it. It's a beautiful graphic novel. It's awesome. It focuses mainly on the power an idea can hold. It also has a really badass female protagonist. Can't argue with that. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the movie, and the movie is a really great adaptation, but the book is also really awesome. It still kind of bashes you over the head with its symbolism and stuff, just like the movie does, but I think a little more subtly. My favorite quote. Our masters have not heard the people's voice for generations, and it is much, much louder than they care to remember. Obviously, this book is very big on revolution on a government level, and while that's interesting to think about, you can also take it to a much smaller level. If you have a new idea, don't let it just sit there and do nothing, because it's not going to go anywhere. Just take it to a level that it needs to be at. Maybe you don't want to blow up Parliament, but do something. Lastly, I want to talk about Uglies. It's really good. Oh, the pretty new covers! It's a young adult novel, but I've read it so many times, and it's still amazing. It's got a really nice pace, so it makes you think a lot, but it's one of those books where you don't think during. It's not shoving its ideas so far down your throat that you, like, can't go on to read another page. Like, as much as I love Fahrenheit 451, it kind of does that. But then when you finally done, you put it down, you realize how much of a message it really has and how much it gives you to think about. If you're not familiar with the series, it's about this society where once you're 16, you go under this huge plastic surgery operation and you become pretty. You're no longer an ugly. And the more, I don't want to give too much away, but the more you learn, the more you realize that there's a little bit more to the operation than they tell you. It definitely gives you something to think about when it comes to social norms, like where social norms end and brainwashing begins. Or is there even a line there in the first place? It definitely brings up a lot of questions about the standards of beauty. As Scott Westerfeld writes, perhaps the logical conclusion of everyone looking the same is everyone thinking the same. That's frightening. So definitely check all of these books out if you haven't already. They're really interesting. They give you a lot of food for thought. I definitely recommend them. Also check out my blog, there's a link in the description. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. Be sure to follow me, and don't forget, subscribe.